All right, here we go to a Fox News alert. President Trump is back at the White House after wrapping up his trip to France for the G7 summit, where he signed the memorandum of understanding with Iran.
But the commander-in-chief says the military option is still on the table if Tehran breaks the terms.
Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst is live in Tel Aviv with the details this morning. Good morning, Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. Overnight, President Trump signed the Memorandum of Understanding, formally extending the ceasefire with Iran. The president was in France's Versailles Palace alongside French President Emmanuel Macron when he signed the document. We also know, in terms of the Iranians, Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, was responsible for signing the document in the Iranian capital of Tehran. Earlier in the day, the president talked about this agreement and what it means and what happens if it isn't enforced.
It's a memorandum of understanding. If it doesn't get done in 60 days, that's all right. We go back to bombing. You know, I don't want to do that because it's so good. But we might have to because we're never going to let them have a nuclear weapon. But they've agreed not to, and you'll see that very clearly in the agreement. We're not putting up money. Only if they're doing things right. If they're doing things right, if people want to invest, they can invest.
On Wednesday, a U.S. official read the agreement to reporters. Within the detail includes an immediate end to all hostilities across the region, including inside Lebanon, a respect to sovereignty of the territory of Iran, and this final deal within 60 days related to Iran's nuclear program. Now, that could be extended, according to President Trump. We'll also see a full lift of the U.S. naval blockade and an opening of the Strait of Hormuz. There are a variety of pieces of sanctions relief for the Iranian regime, but U.S. officials insist this sanctions relief will not come unless the Iranians are conducting themselves in good faith across the region. Now, on the issue of negotiations, Iran's parliament speaker, Mohammad Khalibaf, their top negotiator, said this.
The difference between the negotiations now and the previous periods is that today the flag of victory is in the field, which both enemies and friends have admitted. Our people saw the glory of the armed forces too, even though they were against the well-equipped enemy.
This is really a game of wait and see. The president maintains both military and diplomatic options to deal with the Iranian regime if they don't uphold their end of the bargain. Guys?
So there's a lot we don't understand, and it's only 14 pages. In the next 60 days, will reveal a lot more. But, Trey, we have no provisions on ballistic missiles, right? There's no saying that the proxies cannot be funded, correct? And there's nothing saying after 60 days the Iranians can't go back to tolling or whatever they want to call it, fees in the Strait, because that speaker that you just had said the fees for the Strait are now formalized in the MOU.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the way that the Iranians are looking at the document and the way that the Americans are looking at the document are two different things. As for the missile program of Iran, President Trump said from France yesterday that the Iranians will have some missiles because neighboring countries have missiles. There was a lot of reaction across the region to those comments. But when we look at this agreement, I think it's really important to look at the Memorandum of Understanding for what it is. This is not a final deal with the Iranian regime. This is an extension of the ceasefire between the United States and Iran. And the president's comments yesterday in France were quite important because he said if they don't adhere to the terms of this deal and don't ultimately give up their nuclear program, that he would resume the bombing campaign against the Islamic Republic. And so, again, this is not a final agreement that really checks off everything the United States wants. It is opening up these more detailed negotiations as it relates to Iran's nuclear program. And U.S. officials have indicated that the missile program and the support of regional proxies is something that will be discussed during this time as well. Certainly, there are Gulf countries that are concerned also because they saw the incoming Iranian fire during Operation Epic Fury. But again, this is a ceasefire extension. This is not the broad peace deal that the United States is looking for with Iran.
So, Trey, $300 billion, obviously a lot of money. Who's paying this money and why? Why would they do this?
This was something that the Iranians wanted as part of the broader agreement. U.S. officials say that no American dollars will go toward this fund. They did not say specifically what the involvement of the United States will be in getting the fund together. We're likely looking at money coming from Gulf countries for reconstruction funds inside of Iran. But again, this is one of many questions that people have about this document because it's about a page and a half, 14 points, and many of the details are just specific line items. And so these questions will remain. We do expect to hear more from President Trump about this agreement. But at the end of the day, U.S. officials continue to insist the Iranians won't receive that fund, they won't receive any sanctions relief or oil waivers unless they continue on a path towards stabilization in the region, giving up their nuclear ambitions, and not supporting these regional proxies and expanding their missile program. But again, this is sort of a trust and verify situation. And every U.S. official that you talk to, they say there is going to be a verification mechanism as part of all of this. And specifically on the nuclear program, the International Atomic Energy Agency is going to be involved. And whether we're looking at diluting, destroying, or exporting the highly enriched uranium, this is a process that President Trump has indicated will take a very long time due to the fact that the enriched uranium is buried so deep underground.
Is there any indication, Trey, on the ground of a reaction or response to this agreement where things are normalizing in any way?
The big X factor here on the ground is really Lebanon. Israeli ground forces, as we speak, remain in southern Lebanon, inside Hezbollah territory. Now, Iranian officials, from the parliament speaker Mohammad Kalibov to the country's foreign minister, have indicated this would be a violation of the memorandum of understanding. IRGC officials say that if the Israelis continue to strike Lebanon, it would be a violation of the memorandum of understanding. And remember, in the past, the Iranians have threatened to fire missiles at Israel if they continue strikes against Hezbollah in Lebanon. And so this is all connected here, and a lot of it is sort of a gray area about how the Iranians are going to act, if they are going to try to keep funding Hezbollah or supporting the regime on the ground. We just don't know, and we simply have to wait and see across the region. But the Iranians are certainly trying to tie the situation in Lebanon to the broader agreement, and that could be a challenge for the Trump administration moving forward because, for example, if they enter into these more detailed discussions on Iran's nuclear program and then the Israelis strike Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, the Iranians could say, we're going to step back from the table, and then this could all unravel. And so this is going to really be a wait and see. Each and every day we expect to get more information. And again, U.S. officials have indicated the Iranians are going to focus on this agreement and what they are getting out of it. And the United States is going to do the same as well. That's not uncommon in an agreement like this, but the details are going to be very, very important because it's one thing to say you're not going to get a nuclear weapon. It's another thing to dismantle your nuclear program.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and the president indicated yesterday that they could have a civilian nuclear program, which they cannot have because that means they can enrich on their own just to a lower level. So I'm sure they'll take that back. But thanks so much, Trey.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.